Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Endah Wahyuni and I'm from the 7th semester in English Education Department of STKIP Muhammadiyah Bogor. Today, I would like to present about pragmatics in Grecian maxims. The first slide is the philosopher Paul Greece proposed four conversational maxims that arise from the pragmatics of natural language. The Grecian maxims are a way to explain the link between an utterance and what is understood from them. The maxims are based on his cooperative principle, which states, make your conversational contribution, such as is required at the stage at which it occurs by the accepted purpose or direction of the talk exchange in which you are engaged, and is so called because listeners and speakers must speak cooperatively and mutually accept one another to be understood in a particular way. The principle describes how effective communication in conversation is achieved in common social situation and is further broken down into the four maxims of quality, quantity, relevance, and manner. The next slide is Grace. 1975 argued that for a conversational to take place, all the speakers have to cooperate with one another. A lot of speakers in the conversations have many choices to make concerning what they will say. As well as when and how they will say it, there are still constraints or general rules that they must obey. Miller and Glaxberg, 1988, Greece described speakers in a conversation as all following a general cooperative principle. Accordingly, the cooperative principle is divided into Greece's four maxim conversation, called the Grecian maxims: quantity, quality, relation, and manner. These four maxims describe specific rational principles observed by people who follow the cooperative principle in pursuit of effective communications. Applying the Grecian maxims is a way to explain the link between utterance and what is understood from them. And then the next, first, the maxims of quantity, where one tries to be as informative as one possibly can and gives as much information as is needed and no more. And then the second, the maxim of quality, where one tries to be truthful and doesn't give information that is false or that is not supported by evidence. And then the third, the maxim of relations, where one tries to be relevant and says things that are pertinent to the discussions. And then the last is the maxims of manner, when one tries to be as clear, as brief, and as orderly as one can in what one says, and where one avoids obscurity and ambiguity. Then the next slide is Greece's criticism of the Grecian maxims and the cooperative principle. Greece's theory is often disputed with the argument that cooperative conversations, as with most social behavior, is culturally determined. Therefore, the Grecian maxims and the cooperative principle cannot be universally applied due to intercultural differences. The Malagasy, for example, follow a completely opposite cooperative principle in order to achieve conversational cooperation. In their cultures, speakers are reluctant to share information and flout the maxim of quantity by evading direct questions and replying on incomplete answers because of the risk of losing face by committing oneself to the truth of the informations, as well as the fact that having information is a form of prestige. Another criticism is that the Grecian maxims can easily be misinterpreted to be an outline for etiquette, instructing speakers on how to be moral, polite conversationalists. However, the Grecian maxims, despite their wording, are only meant to describe the commonly accepted traits of successful cooperative communication. Graylich created the politeness maxims: tact, generosity, approbation, modesty, agreement, and sympathy. And then the last slide is conclusions. Grecian maxims are not always obeyed, but the assumption is that people try to obey them most of the time. When the maxims are violated, the speakers apparently wishes to end the conversations, wishes to avoid the conversation, or expects the listeners to understand that the violation is occurring and why. Miller and Glaxberg, 1988. Again, thus it is doubtful that the average person is consciously aware of the rules. Without cooperation, human interactions will be far more difficult and counterproductive. Therefore, the cooperative principle and the Grecian maxim are not specific to conversation but to interactions as a whole. For example, it wouldn't make sense to reply to a question about the weather with an answer about groceries because it would violate the maxim of relations. Likewise, responding to a request for some milk with an entire gallon instead of a glass would violate the maxim of quantity. However, it is possible to flout a maxim intentionally or unconsciously and thereby convey a different meaning than what is literally spoken. Then many times in conversation, this flouting is manipulated by a speaker to produce a negative, pragmatic effect. As with sarcasm or irony, one can flout the maxim of quality to tell a clumsy friend who has just taken a bad fall that her nimble gracefulness is impressive and obviously intend to mean the complete opposite. The Grecian maxims are therefore often purposefully flouted by comedians and writers who may hide the complete truth and manipulate their words for the effect of the story and the sake of the reader's experience. Then, so that's all our material from me. Thanks for your attention and wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.